Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a very, very special episode of Newsflash because we have a very, very special guest joining us. He is probably one of the people most responsible for my personal political development and a man whose political opinions I respect almost more, and I'm interested to hear more than anybody. Without further ado, I'm pleased to welcome, for his first ever appearance on Newsflash, Chapo Trap House's Matt Christman. All right, we are so pleased once again to have Matt Christman of Chapo Trap House with us. Of course, you can follow him on Twitter if you enjoyed this interview, want to find more out about him at Cushbomb on Twitter, and of course, listen to his wonderful podcast, Chapo Trap House. Well, Matt, I really, again, appreciate you joining this podcast. Been obviously a huge fan of your podcast for many years. And I do want to start off by talking a little bit about what's kind of been on everyone's minds at the moment, and that is the election. I can just guess I'll just start with the most basic of questions here. Who do you see winning, Trump or Biden? And how does that play into the Senate and into the House?
Filter out the anxiety and that trauma, and you just look at the data, it does look to me like Biden's probably going to win. And that means that the Democrats can probably also win the Senate and hold on to the House.
And that is kind of an interesting thing because I do totally get a lot of people being very, very reticent to predict after the shock of 2016. But as you said, I really do feel like the dynamics are a little bit different this time around. Have you been able to see any kind of specific dynamics that you think are different in 2016 than in 2020?
Well, the big one, the giant one, and the one that it seems like people just haven't been able to really absorb is that Trump is the president now. And in fact, he doesn't seem to have been able to absorb that he's the president. I mean, he obviously he campaigns and speaks as though he was not in charge, and his followers forgive him based on that same assumption. But he is president, so I think a lot of the reasoning that went into the votes of people in 2016 is going to no longer be operative. The idea that, well, he's an outsider, we're going to give him a chance. He's had his chance, and things are pretty bad, and you really have to have bought into a lot of his presumptions in order to absolve him of responsibility for that, which at this point, I don't think enough people have.
Do you think, as I kind of saw that he was trying to do this a little bit in the previous debate, kind of attacking Joe Biden for not being able to get stuff done in his 8 years under Obama, and kind of play himself again as the political outsider, even though, of course, he is in charge? Do you think that still, though, does kind of work for some people just because he has such still a hostile relationship to all the kind of big forces of power, like the same forces that he railed against in 2016, he's railing against and pissing off now, as in the media, like the liberal elites? Do you think that's magic is still in the air?
Well, it's there for the people who are. I mean, it's all black box. I mean, because people like to say, his supporters still like everything he says, and everything he has pitched still affects, and that they're radically alienated from the order, and so they don't trust anything anybody else says about Trump, from the media to the politicians. And I think that's all true, but we still don't know how many people that actually is. I mean, if polling means anything, it's something like 42 to 44% of the population, which is not enough to win, period. But who actually turns out, suppression is a big issue, obviously. But I would say just as a matter of numbers, I don't think that he has a constituency to naturally win an election based on people who have accepted his framing of the issues. But how that plays out in an election with as many question marks as the one we have right now regarding turnout and ballots being counted actually in some of these states, there's no way of knowing. But my suspicion, and all it can ever to be at this point is suspicion, is that it's not going to be enough.
Yeah, it definitely seems like just some of the same energy is really not there. Maybe it's 4 years of just going through a rather miserable presidency, but it doesn't seem like, I definitely would agree that it doesn't seem that Trump has the same magic as 2016. And that is, you mentioned all those question marks. Do you think we will be able to know the winner on election night? And what do you see playing out if we don't? Because it's been a big question on a lot of liberals' minds.
There probably won't be enough. I don't think that anyone. I think everyone is too gun-shy now to call anything on election night, even if it looks pretty clear. Mm-hmm. My guess is that the broadcast will sort of peter off at the end of the evening on Tuesday with with it looking like Biden is in a good position, and with the media freaking out about insisting to people that we don't know yet, and that nothing has happened, and that no results are final, so that, to not give a green light to state legislatures in Republican states for just suspending counting. But I honestly don't think it will be too long before the call happens. If there's anything like a 10% Biden victory, which has been pretty consistent in polling right now.
Yeah, I saw a poll almost like really that made my eyes widen this morning of Trump being down by 17 points in Wisconsin. I don't even know if that definitely won't hold, but I think just the biggest question will be, and it seems like a kind of a tall order, but do you think that the Trump campaign can convince enough people that these mail-in ballots are fraudulent? For example, in kind of a red mirage scenario where there's a bunch of kind of in-person red votes and then the blue votes over time start to trickle in. Do you see Trump as having kind of enough institutional power and enough pull to say, wait a minute, we can't let these votes continue? They're fraudulent?
Well, he'll say that. I don't think there's any question he's going to say that. There's a question of whether him saying that could activate a plan, and I don't think there's a plan. Largely because it would have to be done at the state level. It wouldn't be able to even be coordinated by the federal government, and so you would need GOP leaders in state legislatures in some of these places to come together around some sort of justification for stopping counting, and then be able to hold the caucus together to prosecute that in a very short period of time. And I don't know if the will or the capacity to do that exists.
Yeah, especially when
people are talking about people talk about a Florida 2020 situation, like a Bush Gore thing, but what allowed that to happen was it coming down to one state, which was very, very close. And if it looks like what it's looking like, I don't think that you're going to have it close enough for that to come into play.
Yeah, that it's definitely got to be at least to some degree of closeness for it to kind of look, I guess, like things have changed. A big and kind of interesting thing that I do want to talk about now is you guys do have a little bit of competition in the podcasting market with a new entrant. The Lincoln Project announced yesterday it's going to get into the podcasting game and the podcasting side of things. Of course, that's the group run by prominent Never Trump Republicans like Rick Wilson, George Conway, and pretty much all the people who made up the Republican Party pre-Trump, really. It says that it is going to go into podcasts and TV shows and also attracted interest from TV studios looking to develop a House of Cards-like fiction series. None of this, to me, personally sounds any kind of promising, but I just want to kind of get your thoughts on the Lincoln Project as a group.
Well, it was an attempt by Republican consultants who were squeezed out of the Trump campaign because they had resisted him because they wanted to maintain the traditional Republican branding, looking to get new jobs. They created it, and now they're going to try to I mean, people talk about how the Lincoln Project is now going to, insidiously attempt to push the Democratic Party right. I don't really think that the Democratic Party needs any help doing that. What you're probably going to see, especially with this media project and all this money being spent on trading and infrastructure, is the hilarious sight of a bunch of people whose organization was funded by Democratic donors putting out content in the next couple of years opposing all Democratic initiatives. There's going to be a new set of Harry and Louise ads against whatever Biden Care program they try to put out. Anything ads about how job killing will be horrible, whatever already insufficient climate legislation is put forward, and that will be very funny.
Yeah, a lot of people who are probably donated in kind of a frenzy right about now are most likely going to be regretting it a couple years down the road. I definitely see where you're coming from on that. But this kind of big and interesting move, that I think does kind of look on its face principled to a lot of people, like standing down from the Republican Party that's been your whole career. Like it does on its face seem like you're giving up a lot if you're someone like Rick Wilson or George Conway, who has kind of had to disassociate themselves from a career and a circle that they've held kind of their whole life. Do you buy that this is like a big sacrifice? And what do you say to people who say, "Oh, well, they're giving up a lot"? Like it's not just about the Monday.
What? I mean, they're sure as hell not giving up money. They're not giving up influence. They're just switching parties, which at the end of the day, it means nothing. I mean, these people are political gargoyles. Their job is to sit there as a intermediary between the money of the ruling interests in this country and the political parties that carry out their will. That's all that they exist to do. That flow happens in both parties, and which party they're next to while they help facilitate it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, definitely kind of representative of the neocons moving from Democrat to Republican and now seemingly shifting back to Democrat. And that has been an interesting trend that I think a lot of people have been pointing out, of how the Democratic Party has almost gotten Lincoln Project-ified almost with the inclusion of these never Trump Republicans and also these former suburban Republicans. Do you buy that there's this realignment happening where we see kind of the former working class base of the Democratic Party leaving either to become disengaged or join the GOP, and you see suburban Republicans moving Democrat? Do you think that is kind of a figment of people's imagination, or is that kind of going to be the broader political trend over the next few years?
We'll have to see what the votes ends up being, but some polling and a lot of the results in elections that have happened since 2016 seem to suggest that there is a move from well-off suburbanites away from the Republican Party on cultural grounds, and a movement of some, especially non-white working class people, towards Republicans on those same cultural grounds, which is a phenomenon that will either be exacerbated or hindered by the Biden presidency. I mean, it all depends on what you think the Biden presidency is going to be. You think that it's going to be austerity with a diversity patina? If you think that, then I think that it's likely this trend will intensify, and you will you potentially get to a situation where race is indeed polarized in the politics, and we have a working class versus sort of I would say broadly, college-educated versus non-college-educated political parties. And that will transcend race and other factors, and on all arguments and all differences will be along cultural lines, while the question of government, economic policy, resource distribution is taken off the table as both parties just are subsumed by eternal austerity emergency that will never be changed.
Do you see kind of the working class, the by definition working class of this country, do you see them drifting in towards more the Republican Party, or becoming less and less politically disengaged, or where do you see that going?
I think you're going to see largely disengagement